Universal Abyss. Infinite enhancement of my skills. Introduction. Tao Yu has been reincarnated into a world that is being consumed by the abyss. Everyone here must enter the abyss to obtain resources from the age of 18. The abyss is the end of the endless world, with countless fragments of broken world fragments. When Tao Yu enters the abyss, she discovers that she has a second abyss talent. As long as she is willing to consume enough willpower and stamina, she can continuously enhance the effectiveness of using a common skill. First talent, Dynamic Vision. Bullet Time. Fixed Time Control. Acceleration. Fixed Time Control. Time Stop. With the help of his special talent, Tao Yu gradually discovered that the fragments of the world in this abyss were somewhat different, some of the remains of the earth, and even the legend of the earth was buried in it. Welcome to Bookmark. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The author is working hard to save the manuscript, and the babies they like will be collected and brought home first. We look forward to the future together. Chapter 1. Awakening Memory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The streets are bustling with lights and wine, the little girls dressed in cool clothes, the traffic lights next to the zebra crossing, the out-of-control mud trucks. The sharp whistle pierced through the dream, and Tao Yu woke up with sweat all over her head, constantly panting. A faint musty and sweaty smell seeped into Tao Yu's nose as she gasped for breath, gradually awakening her. Here it is again, this dream, so real that he cannot distinguish between illusory and real dreams. He was a bit confused between the social animal Tao Yu from the 21st century and the young Tao Yu from the outer city who was about to turn 18. Over the years, he occasionally had this dream, but as the awakening day represented by his 18th birthday approached, the dream became more and more frequent, and in the past month, he even closed his eyes. At first it was believed that it was the pressure and hallucinations that arose with the arrival of the awakening day, but as more and more information and memories were gathered, the completely self-consistent memory and knowledge also told him that these were all true. According to the novels in my dream memories, it seems that I have reincarnated from another world, recalling the peaceful, warm, and beautiful world in my memory. Now I am looking at the damp bedboard made of bricks and wooden boards in front of me, looking up at the stains on the asbestos board wall, and the windows made of cardboard. Tao Yu's expression couldn't help but feel a bit dull. Through the opening in the cardboard window, looking at the pitch black outside, listening to the wind in the darkness, and the faint murmurs and vague whispers, Tao Yu's mood couldn't help but become more complex. An old oil lamp was placed at the head of the bed, and a soybean-sized flame continued to emit a hazy glow, illuminating the entire cabin. However, all the radiance abruptly stopped at the window, as if it could not penetrate outside at all. The occasional flicker of the flame made the shadow tremble in the room, as if it had come to life, as if this subtle flame could be extinguished at any moment. Is there really a peaceful world where everyone can eat meat? Tao Yu has lived in this world for 18 years, recalling the memories of the previous life in his dreams gives him a feeling of being separated. In this life, things that were taken for granted by she in his past life are completely a luxury. A kind of extravagant expectation. Why didn't one's own self travel to that world? With the various combat and survival skills that have been diligently practiced over the past 18 years, entering the 21st century city is at least a bodyguard and son.in.law. Abyss. The sword of Damocles, hanging above the heads of everyone in this world, is the end of the endless world. It has been an unknown number of years since this world was targeted by the abyss. From Tao Yu's limited knowledge, it can be understood through a few words that at the beginning of the abyss devouring the world, the instinctive awakening of the worlds will bestow upon everyone in the world the power to fight against the abyss. Through the continuous exploration of various world fragments in the abyss cracks by pioneers, they seize the power of wish to prolong the life of the world, which has been ongoing until now. Over the years, Tao Yu didn't know exactly what had happened, but the fog representing the invasion of the abyss had already spread throughout the world, compressing human living areas into cities and shelters. The connection between cities has been cut off in half, relying on the lamp of will to illuminate the road in the fog in order to struggle forward. barely maintaining some decreasing communication. The civilization fire that dispels the fog in every city and the awakening day of everyone's 18th birthday seem to be the last gift left by the will of the world. Giggle. The faint crowing of chickens came from outside the pitch-black window, as if in an instant all the darkness outside had disappeared, and a grey light appeared. The crowing of chickens also woke Tao Yu up from his contemplation. Looking at the grey light outside the window, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Then he turned the oil lamp at the head of the bed, which was covered in black oil stains, to extinguish the soybean-sized flame. Recently, there have been more and more disappearances in the outer city, and I don't know when it will end. I hope today's awakening day can successfully awaken my combat talent. In terms of my parents' talent, the best talent I can awaken is probably dynamic vision. If the level of dynamic vision can reach level C or above, perhaps identity can be changed. Wearing plastic-soled shoes with unknown black dirt, Tao Yu pushed open the old door and made a piercing creaking sound. Outside was a living room with a style similar to the room. The living room walls are mainly made of asbestos boards and iron sheets, with a rusty table in the middle made up of a tripod. The chairs in the living room are also of different styles, as if they were made of various garbage materials, including wooden, triangular, and metal ones. Arriving at the side of the water tank, Tao Yu picked up the nearby porcelain basin and scooped up a basin of water with an uneven aluminum alloy ladle. Looking at the thin and delicate face in the reflection, Tao Yu's emotions were a bit complicated. He doesn't look bad either, but he feels malnourished. This month's high-frequency dreams have made his thoughts increasingly intertwined with his past life, making his mind feel refreshed. Crunching, the piercing sound of the same door opening rang out, and a woman with dark skin who looked very capable came out of the room. When she saw Tao Yu, she smiled and revealed her pure white teeth. "Yu, today is your awakening day. You should rest well. I'll do the farm work." "Sister-in-law, I can't sleep." Tao Yu nodded politely when she saw the woman, and then reached out to wash her face. "Okay, my parents have also returned at noon and should be able to bring you some useful weapons and equipment." The woman sighed, thinking that Tao Yu was too nervous, so she comforted her. "I'll go get you something fresh and bring it over for you to eat on the first day." "Thank you, sister-in-law." After washing her face, Tao Yu spoke out her gratitude. "To sum up, this is my third sister-in-law, but my eldest and second brothers all died on the day of awakening. Fourth sister got married, fifth brother died on the cannon fodder mission, sixth sister went crazy and was killed by the security forces. Apart from myself, there were only my parents, third brother, third sister-in-law, and 16-year-old younger brother left at home. However, in order to lower the priority of cannon fodder quotas and increase their own weight points, parents should be considering giving birth to the 9th child recently, but they don't know if they can still give birth. Although both parents have relatively stable jobs and I have been relatively stable since childhood, I have been accustomed to life and death since childhood. At the beginning of the Abyss invasion, the awakening of the worlds will give people the power to resist, and the Day of Awakening is an extremely important turning point for everyone. From the Day of Awakening, everyone in this world needs to spend a certain amount of time delving deep into the abyss to search for willpower to strengthen themselves, while also strengthening the world's will to resist the invasion of the abyss. Although it is not about digitization and panelization, the will of the world will enable individuals to have a clearer understanding of their abilities after awakening, and can be accelerated and strengthened through willpower, while also awakening their personal talents. Personal talents are diverse, and most of them are not very helpful for combat, which has a significant impact on personal growth speed. Due to limited resources, individual talents who lean towards combat are more likely to be cultivated by the company. Find the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com to obtain corresponding privileges and resources. For example, Tao Yu's father, Tao Long, has the talent of Eagle Eye, C+. Although his assistance in frontal combat is limited, he still has certain advantages in scouting, sniping, reconnaissance, and other aspects, which is why he has persisted for so many years and has been living well. Mother Hong Xia, on the other hand, has the talent of agility, F, which is theoretically more suitable for combat than Eagle Eye, but her innate level is too low, only slightly better than the lowest F. Although it is said that there are examples of increasing talent levels, even transforming, and even having multiple talents, it is clear that such incidents cannot occur in such ordinary families. So the mother ultimately chose to marry her father, hoping to cultivate the more suitable standard combat talent of dynamic vision. At the same time, she chose to specialize in a manufacturing skill and entered the leather factory with ingenuity, becoming a senior skilled worker. Thanks to their weight in giving birth frequently, they have not been assigned any cannon fodder tasks by the company over the years. Although individual talent is closely related to genetics, Tao Yu's many older brothers and sisters, also known as the third brother Tao Tong, inherited the talent optimized by their parents and obtained dynamic vision, D+. In theory, his achievements should have been even higher, and he even joined the company's security team at one point. But after losing both legs in a mission, everything came to an abrupt end. Whether it's items for limb regeneration or mechanical prosthetics that allow him to continue fighting, they are not something that families can afford. Fortunately, he was injured for the purpose of the company's mission. In order to promote himself, the company generously waived his and his wife Li Li's cannon fodder mission quotas, and there was no need to worry about mandatory recruitment for cannon fodder missions for life. Chapter 2. The Suppressed World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This world is simply terrifying. Stepping out of the door, breathing in the morning air with a slight smell of cow dung, Tao Yu felt a sigh of relief. I thought the social animals in my past life were already very miserable, but when I think about the people in this world, I really have a feeling of being speechless and looking up to the sky. How did I survive in the past? Feed cows, clean cow manure, milk cows, repair cow hooves every day, and also do various agricultural work such as weeding on the farm. All the spare time is spent practicing various survival and combat skills for Awakening Day, and to this day, one cannot even recognize the words of this world, belonging to semi-illiteracy. A farm that is hard managed, the harvest has nothing to do with the family, and is regularly collected by the company, leaving behind some food for daily living as a gift. If it weren't for the stable work of my parents, there would be a total of 300 units per month willing to support my family. Relying solely on oneself, my third brother, sister-in-law, and younger brother, even working day and night, it is difficult to support a family. Not to mention accumulating some equipment and supplies for the Awakening Day. In addition, parents also need to find ways to continuously increase their own cannon fodder weight and use various means to help them get rid of the company's cannon fodder recruitment. After reaching the age of 18, I will also be included in this sequence, and I will also need to find ways to continuously increase this weight, unless something like good news, like Sangu happens under the invisible threat related to life. The degree of internal competition has already surpassed the sky. Looking into the distance, a gray and misty wall completely blocks the periphery. The gray mist is extremely thick and constantly rolling, and it seems that various black shadows can still be seen flickering in the fog. There is a faint and hazy blue light blocking these mists from the outside. Looking back, one can see the towering and mottled walls of the inner city. The city wall seems to be made of various materials pieced together, including various metal and concrete structures, with traces of filling and repair everywhere. Above the city wall, various gun turrets and machine gun turrets can also be seen. Through the city walls, one can vaguely see some towering buildings in the inner city, with exaggerated neon signs flashing, as well as the top floors of those buildings that are also full of a sense of splicing. It has a touch of the art style and technological sense of 21st century architecture in memory, as well as a contrast in the garbage heap. Looking up again, you can see a giant city base floating in the sky, and the blue light blocking the fog seems to be falling from this floating city, sheltering the earth below. Under the base of the magnificent floating city, there are oil-stained transportation pipelines connecting the inner and outer cities, transporting various supplies to the big shots inside the city for enjoyment. The floating city, inner city, and outer fog are distinct, representing several completely different living environments. Looking back at her own home, Tao Yu felt a sense of oppression as she looked at the farm cottage, which was mainly made up of asbestos boards, metal plates, and compressed boards, combined with a small amount of bricks. There was also a farm on the periphery that did not belong to her own home but needed to be taken care of by herself. Above the roof stood a rough machine gun turret with a hint of rust and oil smell, occasionally creaking and turning itself. This self-disciplined machine gun turret is considered the most valuable and expensive thing in the home. It can distinguish fog monsters at short distances and perform automatic attacks. It can be considered a willpower enhancement item, which is not something that every household has. Although the outer city is also sheltered by the flames of floating city civilization, there are still occasional monsters attacking in the mist. In Tao Yu's impression, he could hear the roar of the autonomous machine gun turret 7 or 8 times a year at night. This is the frequency of monsters passing by the outer night watchman and all other possible interception towers along the way to the farm. Fortunately, only some miscellaneous fish usually leave the mist and enter the sanctuary of the fire of civilization. The lamp of will defends against some invisible dirt, while the machine gun turret physically defends against some leaky fish, which is also one of the reasons why they have been able to survive safely in recent years. Just as Tao Yu was lost in thought, a creaking sound came from inside the room again. A skinny man with wrinkles on his face and gray hair, as well as a woman with an ordinary face and short hair, also emerged from the room. It is the parents of Tao Yu's sheltered him from such a harsh environment to his 18-year-old parents. Although the dream of his past life memories caused him to experience some confusion of memory fusion, a smile still appeared on his face when he saw the two elders, Dad and Mom. Didn't you just come back at noon? Tao Long saw his son, and the wrinkles on his face forced out a kind smile. Why did Lao Chi get up? Although the survival rate has increased on the Day of Awakening, we still need to stay strong and give it our all. Both the boss and the second died on the Day of Awakening, which made Tao Long and his wife somewhat PTSD towards this day when there was originally a 60% survival rate. So the following children are well prepared and would rather cut back on their daily clothes and food than accumulate enough things for the children to use on the Day of Awakening. At least since the incident with the second child, there has been no such tragedy on the Day of Awakening. I can't sleep. Tao Yu responded straightforwardly. Sometimes the more she tries to force herself to sleep, the harder it becomes to fall asleep, which is beyond her control. Then you come with us. Upon hearing this, Father Tao no longer insisted, but casually made arrangements. Previously, we found your uncle Hu at the station. He is now an instructor and can manage your group by saying, hello. Let's go visit together. The company has its own gathering place in the Abyss Cracks, where many production and combat professions work. Although Tao Yu's parents have just returned from their room, in fact, they have all just returned from another world, a world where time is completely synchronized with here. Except for the mandatory half-month survival adaptation period on Awakening Day, everyone can travel back and forth between two places after meditating for about 15 minutes on Awakening Day. In addition to regularly visiting the Abyss Rift to avoid madness, the minimum return interval will also be reduced to 5 days. If we can reach the gathering place, besides the cannon fodder tasks assigned by the company, the survival pressure will actually be reduced. Uncle Tiger has become an instructor. I remember his hand seemed to be broken and he withdrew from the battle sequence, right? Tao Yu was somewhat surprised. Although Tao Hu sounded like he was two brothers with Tao Long, he was only a cousin. Under the pressure of such a dog-like lifestyle in the outer city, names are usually very casual, and duplicate names are also common. He was lucky enough to meet a benefactor and completed the mechanization transformation, with his strength increasing instead of decreasing. There was a hint of envy in Tao Long's eyes. His third son had good talent, but unfortunately he didn't have such a fate. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good idea to sacrifice his life for a noble person. Alright, let's go over there. He should have just returned. Hong Xia took out a large piece of bacon from the kitchen, cleaned several dark areas with a brush, and then walked out. Looking at that piece of smoked meat, Tao Yu, who was not very thin, also swallowed a bit. What a sin. There are really people in this world who can't afford to eat meat. Looking back on the delicious food from the previous life, even though the family conditions were average, as an only child, he had at least fully realized his freedom to eat meat. As a result, in this world, he had to improve his diet in order to have meat to eat. This is even considered decent living conditions in the outer city. Tao Yu did not object to visiting wealthy relatives, nor did she have the inexplicable arrogance of a traveler. After living in this world for 18 years, everything had to be smoothed out. Parents are seniors who have lived in this world for decades, and at least listening to their advice now is not wrong. Moreover, Tao Yu also has a good impression of Uncle Tao who possesses the talent of predictive eye, see, and has extremely strong predictive ability. This ability is much stronger than the same level of dynamic vision, and the intensity value of C.level vision can be comparable to B.level vision. I used to be the best among my relatives, so I left the battle sequence at zhaozuiyuan.com due to injury. I have also been around a bit in recent years, and my relationship can be considered quite good. The other party had taught the third brother before being injured, and after being injured, their own family also helped their own family, which can be considered as mutual support. This kind of relationship is closer than several other legitimate uncles and aunts. Tao Yu's own shooting practice was all done through his connections, saving a lot of bullet consumption expenses. For Tao Yu, who lived in a peaceful period in his previous life, this awakening day with a survival rate of only 60% is naturally better prepared. A survival rate of 60% does not mean that everyone has a 60% chance of surviving, but rather that they will be evenly distributed by those who are fully prepared with a high survival rate. Tao Yu does not want to be included in the average number. Brother Long, why are you so polite? Ah Yu, this kid is so thin. He's going to eat more meat to supplement himself, and his strength can also be stronger. Tiger Uncle is a man with dark skin, short and strong. When Tao Yu saw him again, the position where his arm was originally broken had been replaced by a punk-style robotic arm, and even the left half of his shoulder was completely mechanized as a result. However, although the robotic arm was full of oil smell and shiny when wiped, some signs of wear and tear could still be seen. Judging from the recent replacement time, it should be considered second-hand or above, but its body size is more suitable for Tao Yu. Taking the bacon away, Uncle who used his robotic arm filled with the smell of engine oil to pinch Tao Yu's shoulder, and then spoke up, "Every day someone wakes up, so it's not a big problem for me to say hello and reschedule to today." Speaking of which, Uncle who paused for a moment before continuing, "But I heard that the children of two important figures also participated today, so I still need to mention some things in advance." Chapter 3. Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On a square, in front of an old statue, over 200 young people with different expressions gathered here. They are all 18 years old today and also young people who have awakened their talents today. More than 200 young people were all dressed in various outfits, and even though they had different styles, each carried a large backpack, and many even carried various firearms, weapons, and ammunition. Even many people are still wearing cotton jackets in this hot and humid weather, with sweat on their foreheads that they cannot take off, and their art style appears extremely eerie. At this moment, Uncle Tiger was standing in front of the statue, waving his mechanical prosthetic limbs full of power and mechanical sensation, speaking with righteousness and righteousness from the moment you were born, you have been in debt to the company. The air you breathe, the soil you live in, and the food you eat are all gifts from the company. Your ability to live until now is also a blessing of the company's protection. And now the company will give you another chance to change your destiny. Listening to Uncle Hu's toxic chicken soup from the audience, wearing a cotton jacket and carrying a 20-kilogram backpack, carrying an AK-like assault rifle, Tao Yu couldn't help but show a look of dead fish eyes. Although I know it's Uncle Hu's job, it's unexpected that even this level of toxic chicken soup can be forcibly poured. The most crucial thing is that from the excited expressions of some people nearby, it seems that someone may have actually drank it. More than 200 people present are all 18 years old today, and their true peers were born on the same day, month, and year. Tao Yu, who was originally following Uncle Hu, has also gained a preliminary understanding that most of these 200 people are mud-legged people like him from the outer city. A small part of the outer city has joined the company's security team and served as the children of various small leaders with combat talents in the outer city. From the equipment, it can be seen that there are some differences. Tao Yu, who has an old assault rifle, is considered to be of medium level, while there are also many peers who hold hunting rifles, earth guns, or even sharpened steel pipes. Afterwards, 6 or 7 peers from the inner city stood on the other side with clear distinctions. Fully armed combat uniforms, military backpacks, bulletproof vests, or full body armor, and even 3 people with installed mechanical prosthetics completely distinguish them. In addition, there is a man and a woman standing behind Tiger Uncle with an indifferent expression, which is even more special. Not only did they not join the team, but they also wore a tight combat suit that was full of technology at first glance, similar to the black combat suit style of Killing City. Compared to the group of people wearing cotton jackets, it was really a world of difference. Judging from their equally handsome appearance and the fact that they were born on the same day, they should be a pair of dragon and phoenix twins from the influential figures of the floating city. Moreover, today is also a lucky day for you muddy legs, as the only big shot you have had the chance to see in your life appears in front of you. After entering the abyss, everyone tries their best to find young Master and Miss Sunday. Any loopholes in their fingers can benefit you for a lifetime. In action, you must unconditionally obey their orders, understand? Uncle Tiger emphasized with a strong and powerful roar. Understood. The people below also felt quite excited. Indeed, as Uncle Tiger said, they may only have this chance to see such a big shot in their lifetime, even the children in the inner city. However, Tao Yu is not interested in this, mainly because Uncle Hu has specifically instructed him to avoid them as much as possible during the mission and not to get close to them. Although following them on horseback and forth may indeed bring benefits, the risks are too great. The innate talent of the children of such great figures is inevitably not weak, and they have been nurtured with nutritional supplements and various skills since childhood. Coupled with their equipment and the initial willingness given by their families, it can be said that they are born beyond the end point of others. When ordinary people mainly seek survival, these two are definitely seeking greater benefits, so they will urgently need cannon fodder to test various dangers. The returns may be significant, but the risks are even greater. No matter how great the benefits are, one must survive in order to obtain them. Similarly, there are several fully armed guys in the inner city who may not have as many benefits and risks as those two, so they should be avoided as much as possible. On the contrary, some young men from the outer city can try to get in touch with them. Tiger Uncle greeted a few friendly people and said, not to mention helping, it is still possible to huddle together and keep warm. Firstly, one must demonstrate their own value in order to be accepted equally. If one's strength is insufficient, one must also recognize their position. There is no love without reason in this world, even Tiger Uncle, it is the friendship left by the two families who have helped each other for so many years. If it weren't for the time when he was disabled and entered a low point, even if our family could establish a relationship through family ties, it would only be a form of vassal status. Okay, time is running out, and you already know what you should know, but I still want to emphasize again that the main purpose of this half-month is to survive. The will of the world usually places you at a safer starting point, and then finds the company's gathering place through wireless radio. Only by successfully reaching the gathering place can you have the qualification to survive in the abyss. After speaking, Uncle Hu also raised his hand, and at the same time, a faint blue flame appeared below the base of the floating city in the sky. A beam of light instantly burst out from the flames and hit the statue with an indistinct face. The next moment, a brilliant light covered the square, and all the young people who turned 18 on their birthday disappeared in an instant. But as the radiance disappeared, the tiger uncle, who was originally smiling, turned around and glanced at the statue, but his expression froze instantly. A faint blue glow appeared on top of the statue, which was originally blurry in appearance. Subsequently, the blue glow gradually converged into a new small light cluster that was absorbed by the statue. This made Uncle Hu quickly take out a walkie-talkie from his body, and with a cold sweat on his forehead, he said, "Captain Sichuan." There was an abnormal fluctuation in this teleportation and the region binding could not be completed. A new coordinate has appeared. Everyone will automatically receive gifts at the age of 18. In theory, it's actually the same wherever they are. The reason why they all gather here is to use the flame of civilization to complete regional anchoring, so that this group of newcomers will not be too far away from the company's gathering place. But now the transmission feedback indicates that there is a problem. There are endless fragments of the world in the rift of the abyss, and a slight deviation may cross countless fragments. If you rely solely on traveling through the abyss, you may never be able to reach the gathering place for life. Although this kind of thing doesn't happen often, it has happened a few times before. Some ordinary mud-legged people from outer cities, even if they add a few inner-city children, will become crooked and seek their own survival and blessings. But this time, there are still 2 children of influential figures from Floating City, and this matter is different. However, the teleportation has been completed and cannot be changed. The coordinates of the abnormal area have been recorded, and future newcomers can choose to anchor near that area as well. The intense dizziness made Tao Yu feel nauseous. In addition, the stuffy heat emanating from his cotton jacket made it impossible for him to check the gift of world will at the first moment of landing. Instead, he quickly pulled out a small caliber pistol with one hand and quickly put down his package to begin taking off his cotton jacket. The reason why I came here wearing a cotton jacket is because although this type of regional delivery has anchored the approximate range, the fragments in the abyss are constantly changing and may be thrown into a cold glacier area. If the past is dressed thinly, it may freeze and not even have a chance to wear it. Although it is a probability event, I dare not gamble. It's much simpler to take off a cotton jacket like this now. Throw the cotton jacket onto the ground, wearing a set of cowhide armor made by my mother herself. Insert the pistol into the chest holster, put on the slightly lacquered but shiny AK-like rifle, and skillfully put a bayonet in the front. Tao Yu also began to look at the surrounding environment. The light was somewhat dim, but rays of sunlight still shone through the gaps in the upper branches and leaves. The soil and putrid smell at the tip of the nose, the thick trees around, the soft decaying leaves on the ground, and the coiled roots all explained the environment of the rainforest here. My vision has significantly improved, which should be a talent issue. It seems pretty good. The various survival knowledge familiar to the rainforest over the past 18 years has emerged, and the biggest enemy of the rainforest, apart from the willful creatures in various world fragments, is actually poisonous insects. Quickly starting to tighten the cuffs and pants legs, Tao Yu took out a hat belt with a veil from his backpack and put it on. He also took out a bottle of medicine and began to apply it in several key positions. Zhaosuiyuan.com. After completing all of this, one should hold a gun and remain vigilant while starting to observe their own changes. The will of the world has already conveyed some relevant information to the mind in a non-textual but easily understandable way, causing Tao Yuningshen to become stunned after starting to examine it. My lord is hanging up. Talent 1. Dynamic Vision, B. Possessing strong dynamic vision and making it easier to learn visual and perceptual skills, with a slight increase in agility and responsiveness. There is no doubt that this is a natural talent inherited from parents, and it is also the natural talent that this body should have. This is already quite good. After focusing, one can feel the light of this talent and the information that is understood instinctively. But compared to the dazzling talent next to him, this is nothing. There may be many talents in this world, and it may even be improved or even increased after birth, but that has nothing to do with ordinary people. But now Tao Yu has a second talent. Talent 2. Divinity, max ++. An external god from the void. Known ability 1. 1 proof permanent proof, any improvement obtained through practice will not diminish, and any injury can be fully recovered by absorbing willpower or eating. Ability that needs to be improved through practice and willpower, similar to the heavenly demon disintegration technique, which only accelerates the recovery of injuries after the ability is activated, and cannot solidify ability card bugs. Known ability 2. Mental immunity, ignores any influence or attack from the spiritual and soul side. Known ability 3. Divination, empowers existing abilities and talents by consuming willpower. When using the enhanced version of the ability, additional physical and mental energy will be consumed based on the strength of the ability. Chapter 4. Willingness Enhancement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Take off. Tao Yu felt the transformation deep in her soul, the indescribable feeling, and a strong sense of excitement in her heart. The world in front of us becomes clearer, and the enhancement of vision is intuitively reflected. And this kind of divine talent, I have never heard of it. Not to mention the strange level of max ++, I haven't heard of it before, and it feels like I'm confused. However, from the description of the external god from the void, Tao Yu had some vague speculations, perhaps related to his own journey. Looking at the 3 known abilities of divinity alone, it seems that none of them can instantly increase combat ability, but they represent infinite potential. The gift of the will of this world does not have much data-driven or fixed ability, and the ability that everyone practices will decline with long-term lack of training. Just having the acceleration and strengthening of willpower can maintain stability under appropriate practice and consumption. But Tao Yu doesn't have to think about this kind of thing again in the future. Any injury can be restored through willpower and eating, which are also divine skills. Just beside Tao Yu, there are 2 disabled individuals, San Gu and Hu Shu. In fact, there are also many years of accumulated pain on the parents, but none of these are problems for oneself. The second spiritual exemption may have a simple meaning, but the prefix of ignoring anything is enough to demonstrate its terrifying potential. True strength comes from encountering strength. The last one, divination, Tao Yu has not yet had a specific concept, but he can also vaguely feel the greatness of it. Wishing power is a power that permeates the various world fragments of the abyssal rift. Usually, it is concentrated on various wishing creatures and items. After killing a wishing creature, there will be some remnants containing wishing power, and some remnants may even carry some knowledge, skills, or incomplete information. Some wish power items are also similar, sometimes having various special functions. For example, the autonomous machine gun turret on the roof of the house is an N-hand wish item that can automatically search for nearby fog monsters to attack. And the strengthening of individual willpower itself is more like a training accelerator, usually the limit of practice that one can reach. For example, by exercising and accelerating through willpower, there is a chance for an ordinary person to reach the pinnacle of the human body in all aspects, including sprinting, weightlifting, and endurance. But if there are no other talents and skills to bless, this is the limit, and this limit will quickly decrease with prolonged non-practice, usually requiring sufficient practice or even a certain amount of willpower consumption to maintain the state. The same goes for various skills, such as firearms, combat skills, and so on. If new skills and knowledge are obtained through the remains of wishing creatures, or if a certain skill is learned through characters in some world fragments. You can also use your willpower to accelerate, and at certain critical moments, you can break through bottlenecks by significantly consuming your willpower based on your own qualifications and skill difficulty. The consumption of willpower is closely related to one's own strength foundation, talent, skill difficulty, and training methods. Individuals with combat talents can train their strengths and consume much less willpower. The stronger the strength, the greater the acceleration of consumption. It can be said that willpower is quite important, but it is not omnipotent, and more importantly, it brings about a quantitative accumulation. Now, based on the ability of deification, is it possible to use willpower to achieve a qualitative change in the ability? This also made Tao Yu's heart flutter. After taking a deep breath to calm down, she opened her backpack again and took out a canvas bag. When she took it out, she could hear the crisp sound of collisions inside, which seemed to be some metal. After opening, you can see some shiny metal crystals inside. This is the currency that carries the power of wish. It is a gift that parents extract from their accumulated wish and give to some special metals. It is something that can only be used after the awakening of talent, and it is also the greatest gift that parents can give on the day of their awakening. There is no fixed panel for talent awakening, it is more like a consciousness, and there is no fixed counting unit for the amount of willpower. But everyone can give a convenient definition for recording through their own will. According to the general definition of transactions with the company based on the experience of parents, the total monthly income of parents is 300 units, which can be considered as 1,000 units of willingness. Being able to complete 10 hours of practice with 100 times the acceleration of an average person, or 20 times the acceleration of an average person with 100 hours. With the improvement of personal abilities or skills, the consumption of willpower is increasing. At the same time, in order to achieve short-term and more efficient acceleration, the consumption will also continue to increase, and the cost-effectiveness will become lower. These two acceleration modes are the two that Tao Yu's parents have explored, which are relatively suitable for awakening days in terms of cost-effectiveness. Although the first option may not be as cost-effective as the latter, it can greatly reduce time costs on the day of crisis, spending a day completing high-intensity exercises, and quickly gaining targeted abilities based on different fragmented environments. If the acceleration effect is compressed to 1 hour, it may only achieve a speed increase of 500 times, and the cost-effectiveness is not suitable for the current use of ceramic jade. The better the acceleration effect, the higher the consumption will also increase exponentially. In addition, with the increase in strength, the speed of power consumption will increase again. Even the big shots may not be able to afford it in the future. The improvement of willpower has limits and thresholds, and the closer to the limit, the more severe the marginal effect. But now Tao Yu has a new choice, which is to directly deify her existing talents or skills and let them undergo a qualitative transformation. Although it seems that the physical exertion of skills will also increase synchronously, it is definitely worth it for oneself to be able to recover through eating. Well, wish power can also accelerate the recovery process, and it is highly likely that the efficiency will be higher, but currently it is directly excluded by Tao Yu, who is a poor person. After making the decision to use it, Tao Yu also began to examine his other existing skills that emerged with the awakening of talent. It has been all these 18 years of hard practice, and after awakening one's talent, it has become more intuitive to perceive the skills that the light cluster can vaguely bring out some enlightenment. Skills: Basic Shooting, LV1, Basic Fighting, LV2, Basic Blade, LV2, Basic Breathing, LV1, Basic Herbal Recognition, LV1, Basic Trap Making, LV1. There are a lot of miscellaneous skills, which are broad but not precise, mainly for survival. Among them, the most likely ones that are closely related to one's own combat power are Basic Shooting, Basic Fighting, Basic Weapon Blades, and Basic Breathing Method. It's easy to understand the literal meaning. If you use willpower to strengthen practice, even if you haven't completed the level increase, there will still be a significant improvement in proficiency and an increase in some related physical fitness. The identification of that level is just a convenient sensing, just a standard within the company. And the gap between these levels does not have the kind of qualitative change that breaks through levels. Everything is natural, the gap is large, but not so exaggerated. LV1 and LV2 can be seen as ordinary amateur players and top amateur players, while LV3 is a professional athlete. The first three levels can all be accelerated by willpower, but it is almost equivalent to the LV4 of an Olympic athlete who already needs to start looking at talent. Even without talent, one can stack it up, it's just twice the result with half the effort. And the attenuation speed will be very fast, and maintenance will also be very difficult. LV5 represents various human limits, and there is also a significant difference in the range of proficiency within LV5, roughly equivalent to 9.8 seconds and 9 seconds per 100 meters. Later on, Tao Yu didn't know the skill level anymore. His father relied on his eagle eye to get a basic shooting LV4, perhaps reaching LV5, but he couldn't afford the maintenance cost. This can also be considered the norm for ordinary families in the outer city. Including the quota division of willpower, Tao Yu can design strange units as long as she wants, and can directly set her ability level to LV99, but the upper limit will naturally increase. But with deification in place, he cannot first choose to increase the proficiency of these skills that have been diligently practiced for many years. In the end, Tao Yu's focus was on her natural talent, dynamic vision, B, and basic breathing technique LV1. Dynamic vision is one's innate talent and its importance is beyond doubt. And basic breathing method is a relatively valuable skill in the outer city, which not everyone can learn. Tao Yu struggled to get started by relying on his disabled third brother's continuous personal guidance and teaching. Although it is not something as lofty as internal mental techniques, it is even impossible to break the boundaries of the human body. But it can increase endurance to a certain extent and reduce the speed of body decay, reduce the intensity of maintenance exercises, and increase the efficiency of physical exercise. It can also be considered as the relatively highest and most advanced skill that Tao Yu acquired. According to the feedback from one's own concentration, deification of dynamic vision requires around 800 units of willpower. Basic breathing method costs around 140. Basic shooting, basic combat, and basic weapon blades are all between 80 and 100, which is not enough for further enhancement. But it can also be used as a starting point for basic trap making, or leave some for accelerated reinforcement, as well as emergency measures for self-injury recovery. After roughly planning, Tao Yu began to follow a step-by-step approach, starting with dynamic vision. With Tao Yu's concentration, he first sucked 1,000 units of wish power into his body from those metals, and then began to focus his attention on his dynamic vision. In the next moment, the light cluster representing the talent of dynamic vision seems to have undergone significant changes, as if it has also brought out strands of golden radiance. And Tao Yu's dynamic vision brought clearer vision, which suddenly became brighter. Even in the dimly lit rainforest, one can see all the information and details as clearly as day. The textures of trees, crawling insects, pythons hanging from tree tops, and so on all fall into one's eyes. Just passive visual enhancement has already yielded fruitful results. It's just a slight increase in dizziness when wearing glasses, but it seems to have quickly subsided, perhaps due to the adaptation brought about by mental immunity. With concentration, new abilities that have been deified come into view. Dynamic vision. Divination. Under normal circumstances, having extremely strong dynamic vision, Yu reading www.yuyukeangshu.net can greatly enhance the effect under the consumption of highly concentrated mental energy. You can see the trajectory of mosquito wings and bullet trajectories, and consume a lot of extra physical strength to temporarily increase explosive power and reflection speed. Insufficient physical strength may cause strain. The skill descriptions are all transformed into information that Tao Yu can understand through non-textual means. Upon receiving this exceptionally terrifying increase, Tao Yu immediately felt the plasma pumped by her heart. This is too exaggerated. What kind of dynamic vision is this? This is clearly the bullet time. Almost accompanied by the lying trough in Tao Yu's heart, his talent information also transformed and changed after understanding. Talent. Bullet time, max, and what stirred Tao Yu's heart the most was that he found that the talent of bullet time could continue to be enhanced. After concentrating and perceiving, he immediately poured a basin of cold water on him. The cost of this second deification is much greater than the multiple increase in wish power acceleration, and the first deification cost of one's own abilities is still within acceptable range. But to deify again, it would require feedback from at least tens of thousands of units of willpower, making him understand that this is not something that can be accomplished in the short term. Actually, it's not a big deal. Now that the bullet time is completely sufficient, if I really strengthen it again, my physical and energy consumption may not last for a second. It doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter. Tao Yu comforted herself for a while, but there was always a sour feeling of not being able to eat grapes. However, he is not completely self-comforting. As a little karami now, the active consumption of bullet time may be enough, and further strengthening may only result in passive abilities. Chapter 5. Physical Changes. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Crackle because the branches still carry some moisture, not only is the smoke quite large, but also makes some crackling sounds when burning. Strands of snake meat were skewered on branches and baked over the fire, creating a scent of meat in the air. The snake meat that was just put on can still clearly see the peristalsis of white parasites, but soon it turned into protein under the high temperature of the flames. Tao Yu started putting on the new skewers while also tearing at a skewer that had already been roasted. Although only sprinkled with some salt, the food was still dripping with oil. He has been sitting here eating for over 4 hours now, and he has eaten most of a python that is 3 to 4 meters long and weighs over 50 pounds. The reason for all of this is the successful deification of the basic breathing technique, as well as the use of the remaining dozens of units of willpower as accelerated nutrient consumption. Skills ultimately cannot compare to talents. Although deification consumes less wish power, its effects are not as stunning as talents. However, what enhances my talent more is still my potential. The stronger I am personally, the stronger my talent will be, and the greater the immediacy of my skills. After showing off another string of snake meat, Tao Yu felt a sense of fullness in her stomach and was also pondering how to develop a digestive skill in the future. The speed of eating and digestion to some extent limited her energy intake. And I only have the ability to recover, but my current body is not immune to diseases, bacteria, and parasites. The pre-deification expression of the basic breathing method is to increase the exercise effect to a certain extent, accelerate the recovery of physical strength to a certain extent, increase endurance to a certain extent, reduce the degeneration of the body to a certain extent, and minimally increase the upper limit of the human body. Zhongjing is peaceful, with proper rules and regulations, without any outstanding features, but it can indeed be considered a high-quality skill that ordinary people in the outer city can obtain. After spending over 100 wishes to deify, Tao Yu also casually added a character change. Basic breathing method modification, LV1 can communicate with oneself to increase exercise effectiveness, consume qi and blood to increase explosive power, consume qi and blood to increase endurance, and to some extent increase the upper limit of the human body. The basic breathing technique that Tao Yu previously mastered was mainly a breathing technique, and it was practiced very strictly, requiring guidance from someone. If a person practices blindly, it may cause lung damage. After practicing proficiently, it mainly involves some changes in breathing, without any mysterious special senses such as internal strength and qi. After all, it's just a skill that everyone in their family can master. It can be considered rare in the outer city, but it's not a powerful thing in itself. The basic breathing method of the combat talent family is standard. After completing the deification, the sense of control inside, resembling a little mouse swimming and boiling with qi and blood, clearly represents a qualitative change in this skill. Although there is no effect of releasing qi and blood externally, every movement of qi and blood can make Tao Yu feel a slight change in her body. Even if the degree of change is not significant, with the support of the ability of one certificate of eternal proof, it will only rise, not fall. At least until reaching the limit of basic breathing techniques, the efficiency of exercise should far exceed that of ordinary people. It was precisely with this feeling that Tao Yu's plan to deify basic trap making was temporarily put aside. My thin and weak body is definitely my biggest weakness, and I need to survive in this rainforest environment for 15 days. A healthy body is crucial. Practicing in the gym is also the best in the first month, correcting some postures and cultivating some habits. Personal parameters such as push-ups can skyrocket, and now the basic breathing method is naturally the same. So, taking advantage of the best window period and highest efficiency of the basic breathing method reform, Tao Yu decisively used the remaining bit of willpower to complete the accelerated practice of breathing method. Because there were only about 60 units of willpower left, accelerating 100 times may only take half an hour, which was not suitable. Therefore, he extended the time to 5 hours and adjusted the rate to around 20 times. At the same time, there are still the last 10 units of willingness left for emergency use, in case of injury, illness, and lack of time to eat. Under Tao Yu's perception, the cost-effectiveness of using wishing power to recover physical strength and injuries is extremely low. 10 units of wishing power is roughly equivalent to eating 2 bites of meat. The higher the strength, the greater the cost of wishing power recovery, which is very low and cannot be used normally. However, having 10 points here is still somewhat comforting. Under normal practice, one cannot practice 24 hours a day. It still requires a lot of time for recovery and rest, and the 20 times acceleration of these 5 hours is almost equivalent to high-intensity training for a few months. Just the same, Tao Yu also felt the increased consumption effect of the deification. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to find a python hanging from a tree with my amazing eyesight. Otherwise, I would have had to deal with all the compressed dry food in my backpack after practicing for this time. It's pretty good, it's just an increase in physical exertion. The energy consumption for acceleration hasn't increased much, but the training effect is too good, and the acceleration effect in the last hour has decreased by about 30%. Feeling the gradual fading of the acceleration effect of the wish power, Tao Yu also stood up and punched in place. The heavy feeling of the surging qi and blood made his bones creak. After the punch, his whole body felt comfortable and he felt a few pounds lighter. But in reality, he almost flaunted half of a python weighing over 50 pounds and drank a few liters of water alone, but his excretion was far from enough. His body was clearly stronger, and the lightening was all due to the illusion of improved physical fitness. If I were a young person with malnutrition before. Now, at least it can reach the physical level of amateur sports enthusiasts, and it is the kind that is all round. If the acceleration effect of the same amount of energy consumption in the last hour is reduced, it can be regarded as a standard certification. I have become stronger. With the consumption of qi and blood burst through breathing techniques, the maximum explosive power can still be higher. 100 meters will definitely be thrown out by Bolt, but he should be able to catch up with him and beat him to tears within 10,000 meters. Cool. After exercising her muscles and bones, she felt the changes in her physical fitness. The experience of a healthy body made Tao Yu unable to stop, as she had never experienced such a healthy and strong physique in her past or present life. Fitness can be addictive, and this is probably not empty talk. Pick up the black metal kettle next to it that was not completely cold, and finish drinking tons of water from the tree hole with a slight bitterness inside. Tao Yu then went to the nearby tree hole to fill the kettle and threw it onto the fire to heat and boil. At the same time, he skillfully used his unused cotton jacket, tore off the lining one by one, and used it to pack the remaining roasted snake meat. Although there was not much snake meat left, he did not want to waste it. In addition to the weight occupied by spare bullets, most of the supplies carried by oneself are survival items and food. In fact, relying solely on these foods, if one saves money and reduces exercise, they can barely survive for 15 days, at least catch a breath. However, the location of the abyss entry will not change. It is meaningless to stay here waiting for the end of the awakening day. Not to mention the dangers that may be encountered in the rainforest, but to say that the next time you come back after successfully returning, it will still be here. Are you still carrying a bag of food to survive? So, after eating and drinking enough, and completing the preliminary reinforcement, it is also necessary to consider the next path. Although the company is very deceitful and the degree of blessings is far greater than in previous lives, currently I still need to find a place where I can provide shelter for my small arms and legs. Potential is potential, strength is strength. Tao Yu, who has been a person for 2 generations, has not yet expanded to the point where he cannot recognize himself clearly. After packing all the snake meat and boiling the nearby kettle, Tao Yu finally had the energy and time to flip through the bulky receiver on her wrist. The green LED screen is full of pixel art style, but this thing can receive wireless radio signals. With knowledge from his past life, Tao Yu knew that longwave radio could form sky waves through ionospheric reflection. But obviously, it's hard to say if this thing exists in places where the world is shattered everywhere. It's just that the strange blessing of some willing equipment can give the company's radio station a super long influence range, which can be taken for granted. Traverse, abyss, and world will have all arrived, what else is impossible to appear? Should we still climb up the tree? Watching the adjusted channel display with no signal, Tao Yu patted the bulky receiver with her hand and felt a murmur in her heart. Surrounded by dense rainforests, it seems normal to have any impact. Looking up and around, Tao Yu easily found the most suitable tree to climb nearby with her extraordinary eyesight. The thing was left in place, and then some branches were thrown towards the fire. Tao Yu quickly came to the target's giant tree with a gun on his back. Weapons cannot be left at any time, as my parents have always reminded me. Looking at the rough patterns on the bark in front of her, Tao Yu was also a bit foolish and wanted to try. It was time for her powerful body to show off. Chapter 6. Fragments of Seemingly Encountered Knowledge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mad, this tree is really difficult to climb. Sitting on a sturdy branch of the tree crown, Tao Yu felt a slight gasp. I don't know what kind of tree this is. Previously, on the ground and near the rainforest, there were so tall reference buildings that I didn't feel much. It was only when I got up that I realized there were several floors so high. Plus carrying a gun and magazine weighing over 10 pounds, it really took a lot of effort. That is to say, the basic breathing method has improved physical fitness, which may not have been able to climb up before. Physical fitness is indeed one's weakness. However, this time climbing the tree, Tao Yu discovered another new advantage of herself. It should be the blessing brought by the one certificate, eternal certificate. Even if one feels a bit tired and their physical strength is clearly depleted, their strength, reaction and many other abilities have not decayed at all. The soreness belongs to the soreness, but it does not affect himself. This strange contrast really makes him a bit uncomfortable. It's a pity that the fatigue and soreness cannot be offset by the mental immunity, otherwise it will just get stuck and bug. Just thinking about it, the pain and fatigue are just a reminder from the body to oneself. It would be terrible if one could be shielded by mental immunity. Sitting on the branch of a tree, holding onto the trunk with one hand to prevent herself from falling, and looking up at the receiver with some bark debris on her hand, Tao Yu finally saw a signal prompt. This made him breathe a sigh of relief, as the bands were already adjusted for the company's public screen bands. Stand up and raise your hand high, causing your wrist to sway left and right beyond the tree crown. Finally, you can also hear the sound from the receiver. There is another radio band here, but there is no sense of willpower. It is most likely a radio station owned by the world Fragments themselves. We gather there as much as possible. I update the broadcast information at noon every day, and the information repeats until 6 p.m. Upon hearing this cold and indifferent voice, Tao Yu couldn't help but be slightly stunned. What was the situation? However, the voice quickly finished speaking and began to mechanically repeat itself. It was likely that the recording was set up and repeated like a repeating machine. We regret to inform everyone in Xingyao City that we have encountered rare spatio-temporal anomalies and were unable to complete the binding with the company's residence area. Our props have not received any signal from the company. Opening lightning strike, the speaker is likely to be those two twin siblings from Floating City. As important figures born in Rome, it is normal for them to have various rare props in their hands, and it is only natural for them to be able to directly send telegrams to notify all other members nearby. And if they don't receive any information from the company's headquarters for their high-end goods, it only indicates that their prediction is true. Temporal and spatial anomaly events. Damn it. Why do I encounter such a small probability event on my own? Immediately, Tao Yu thought of her divine nature. Is there a possibility that it was caused by herself? Then he put all these complaints behind him and silently continued to listen to the news on the radio. According to the Sun siblings, the distance from here to the company's base, if calculated based on distance, is at least 100,000 kilometers, which is at least 2 to 3 equatorial circumferences of the Earth. Even if calculated based on the shortest possible distance, there may be multiple world fragments in the middle. In terms of the danger and variability of the abyss, this distance is a natural chasm, not to mention the possibility of even further distance, with more world fragments. So there's no need to think about finding shelter in the company's location. If you really have the ability to cross such a long distance, then you still need some damn shelter. The only benefit of this bullshit company is gone, bullshit. But another good news is that they have received a broadcast from another radio station, which contains some incomprehensible language. Plus, they determined that there was no wish-breath enhancement signal, so that radio station is likely the one of the local creatures in the world debris. Although it may not be a gathering place for other foreign companies, organizations, or races, it may be a place for indigenous people to rest. Having a radio station may represent one's own civilization, and perhaps one can get in touch with it. Listening to language remotely may not be easy to understand at first, but when encountering indigenous people, one can use willpower to translate meaning in person. This can be considered one of the gifts of the will of the world, allowing pioneers to conveniently walk through various realms. It is said that some strong individuals on the spiritual side do not require willpower and have the skills to complete communication on their own. By then, the place with a radio station can rely on a basic foundation to build a new gathering place temporarily, which can also be faster. Encountering temporal and spatial anomalies, you may be unfortunate, but being able to come here with us is also your luck. Building a new company gathering place with us as the core, you will all become the elders of the gathering place. At the end of the familiar chicken soup, Tao Yu gained some new insights into the current situation. However, at this moment, Tao Yu felt a slight tremble in the trunk of the tree. This tree is very sturdy, but when placed at this height, even after Tao Yu almost climbed to the top, he was still very sensitive to vibrations. With the help of height, looking around, although many of her views were blocked by branches and leaves, Tao Yu still felt the trembling of the branches in the jungle. From the amplitude and frequency of that trembling, it seemed that something big had come over. No, it's not just big things, it's long things, big and long things. Then the next moment, in Tao Yu's widened eyes, a huge snake head peeked out from the corner of the forest shelter, and the water tank-sized snake head completely overturned the normal body shape of snakes. Even if a normal snake is long, it won't actually be too thick. The one Tao Yu eats is 3 or 4 meters long, but it only weighs over 50 pounds. A giant snake weighing 7 or 8 meters is about the same as an adult. It is not impossible for 2 skilled adults to catch a 7 or 8 meter python alive with their bare hands. Tao Yu directly stabbed and pulled the python twice, making it his plate of food. But this snake head, the size of a water tank, completely overturned Tao Yu's perception and brought a silent sense of oppression. At the same time, Tao Yu quickly searched for some film and television memories from her past life in her mind. I seem to have seen similar film and television works. Yes, it's that type of snake. At this moment, Tao Yu also felt strange in her heart. The abyss devours many worlds, with a large number of world fragments, and the first to bear the brunt is the manifestation of various fantasy worlds. After the world I am currently in was invaded by the abyss, it can be inferred from a few words that many fragments of the world are various stories, works, and mythological legends circulating in this world. However, over the years, many stories on zhaoshuyuan.com have disappeared with various controls, and Tao Yu can only obtain limited information from her parents. But whether through language or other perspectives, Tao Yu can conclude that this is not Earth, and all the stories have nothing to do with Earth. Even the external divine certification of one's own divinity can be considered a testament to the will of the world. Why do things like Earth movies and TV shows appear here? Coincidentally, a similar legend. Or are world fragments from Earth appearing under spatiotemporal anomalies? This means is the Earth also beginning to be swallowed up by the abyss? With memories and accumulation from his past life, Tao Yu is not lacking in imagination and association, and he has also made some vague guesses and inferences. Even spatiotemporal anomalies may be related to this, to oneself. Then the next moment, he saw that the giant python might have been attracted by the snake's flesh and swallowed its package and nearby debris in one gulp. Damn it! Putting aside the speculation, Tao Yu sat firmly on the tree branch without any fear, lifted her AK-like rifle, aimed at the python, and then pulled the trigger. The killing power of bullets on carbon-based creatures made Tao Yu see indifferent to this twisted python. As long as she could hit the key, she would die. Is it possible for you to escape with your own vision left here? Dada. The painful python quickly curled up, carrying the package and roasted snake meat that had already been swallowed, and instantly left Tao Yu's shooting range, making Tao Yu sitting on the tree branch feel speechless for a while. I am clearly aiming for the head unexpectedly, both eyes and hands kept up, but the quality of the firearms couldn't keep up. This trajectory is too graceful. Chapter 7. Gunshots. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, my parents didn't know I would have a time for long-range shooting, did they? Tao Yu slid down from the tree, looking at the bonfire that had been extinguished by the twisting of the giant python, as well as some messy clutter nearby. She had to restrain her mind and start searching for useful items that were still left behind. It's not that parents don't pay attention to the quality of firearms, but rather that in this primarily survival-oriented environment, there is almost no such distance shooting. If there is a threat from a long distance, the first choice is to avoid it, rather than shooting to create noise. This AK-like gun has high power and low failure rate. Although it may not be as powerful as the nozzle at close range, it is still quite good in the hands of Tao Yu, who has a gun foundation. He just didn't expect to see a situation where he would ride on a branch and shoot. Fortunately, the kettle was roasted over the fire, and although the metal kettle is a bit deformed, it can still be used. But besides the kettle, all that's left of me is my equipment. The cowhide armor made by my mother herself has a certain level of defense, with a small caliber pistol holster inserted on it, as well as 2 magazines loaded with 30 rounds. There is also a multi-purpose dagger with flint hanging on the outer thigh, as well as this N-handed assault rifle with a flowing trajectory and 2 fragmented grenades. Looking around, Tao Yu's current dynamic vision and reaction don't need to worry too much about some sneak attacks. For the sake of protection, the places where the world's will is thrown on the Day of Awakening are usually low-risk areas. Based on the experiences of parents, third brother, sister-in-law, and Uncle Tiger, most of the time on the Day of Awakening may not even be able to use weapons, mainly due to environmental and survival issues. The dangers outside the environment may come from some wild animals, such as wolves, tigers, leopards, and bears, as well as some poisonous insects and snakes. In theory, that python is still considered a fierce beast, but it has already exceeded the limit a bit. I hope there won't be anything beyond the standard. Tao Yu's eyes flickered slightly. If it was really a world fragment from the movie in her memory, then these pythons themselves could definitely be considered as wish creatures. Although as a physical mortal, there may not be much reserve of willpower. For Tao Yu today, having a few dozen or 20 points can be considered a good harvest. The first 1,000 units of willingness were a gift from their parents, and they could save up at least 3 to 4 months of salary without any expenses together. Although they are relatively low-risk jobs, they are also old fogies who have mixed together for decades after all, and together they can barely earn 10 units a day. Tao Yu wouldn't look down on the python just because she started spending 1,000 units of willpower recklessly. The standard beginner adaptation period of Awakening Day is good enough to receive a willingness income. And if it's the estimated world fragment, then these pythons may also be related to another type of wish item, the blood orchid. Wish power items can not only be directly absorbed as wish power, but they may also have various functions. Blood orchids look good, maybe they can be eaten directly. Firstly, make sure that you are unable to go to the gathering place of the company, not only for the past 2 weeks, but also for a period of time that you may need to play wilderness in this rainforest to survive. These giant pythons, with their huge size, sensitive response, and far exceeding the strength of normal snakes, although also pose greater risks than ordinary beasts, they also bring corresponding benefits. I fired 3 shots on the tree before, and with the backup magazine, I still have 87 bullets left, as well as 17 small caliber pistol bullets. Perhaps I can try to convert these ammunition into corresponding benefits before they run out. I don't know where those 2 guys from the floating city are either. They shouldn't be in the rainforest, and it's probably quite far from the place they say has a radio station. My main focus is on collecting resources to improve myself. Turning potential into strength early is the top priority. After returning, I will still stay in the outer city. Within the control of this Dog Day company, only strength is the best voice. Looking down at the bloodstains left by the python after being shot, as well as the direction in which the bloodstains extended, Tao Yu took a deep breath and then began to move in that direction. Snake, I'm here. If you eat mine, you'll have to spit it out twice as much. An hour later, looking up at the dim light between the leaves, Tao Yu couldn't help but frown. Although his enhanced vision is now displayed here and has not been greatly affected, the rainforest at night is clearly more dangerous. The previous practice and fragmented time of the basic breathing method improvement were also delayed until evening. Even if you're shot, you can still run so well. After all, it was in the rainforest, and Tao Yu couldn't have scattered Yazi's journey. She followed the bloodstains of the snake all the way. Even for this kind of python, gunshot wounds are not so easy to heal. Tao Yu has been following so closely and wants to see if this thing will lose too much blood and just stick on the road. Even now, he doesn't want to give up easily. Looking at the sticky blood stains on the fallen leaves on the ground in front of her, as well as the snake path that the other party had walked out of along the way, Tao Yu also looked around. The dark rainforest occasionally produces some noises and strange sounds, and the environment becomes increasingly gloomy with the dim light. Chase for another half hour, before you catch it, you'll have to start a fire and rest. Although Tao Yu's visual ability is extremely strong now and he is not afraid of not being able to see clearly, he is not prepared to look big either. Walking to the edge of a nearby tree trunk, I casually cut through the bark with a bayonet, and then tore off a piece of already loose bark with my bare hands. From inside, I dug out several plump white bugs and stuffed them into my already swollen pocket. The rainforest is good for this. There is food everywhere, which is high-quality protein. After starting the fire, it can be grilled a little and eaten. In fact, eating raw is also possible, but now his body is unable to resist diseases, and if he develops diarrhea, he will become numb. Although diarrhea does not affect one's ability to perform and can be restored through eating, it can also waste energy and time, so there is no need to take risks. But at this moment, there was a faint sound of gunfire coming through, which made Tao Yu slightly stunned. Later on, it was also understood that it was possible that they had collided with the same period of this batch. After all, although the anchoring of the teleportation together failed, the distance distribution between them may not be too far. There is also a small chance of encountering some characters from the original world Fragments, but the possibility is still not high in environments like rainforests. The entry of these world fragments is quite random, and it cannot be said that they will be thrown at the beginning of the plot. After considering it for a while, Tao Yu slowly groped towards the direction of the gunfire, first to see who the people were, and then made targeted decisions. No matter what, in an environment like a rainforest, it's also good to have people who can set up temporary groups to guard each other and ensure rest. The feeling of mental exhaustion is not simply a problem of recovery without recovery. However, as suggested by Uncle Hu, if you encounter those from the inner city and those twins, you still need to consider more. In fact, there is already a significant deviation between the current situation and the initial estimate. If it were the twins, now they want to establish a new gathering place, which is when they are short of manpower. If one cannot avoid claiming to be at the level of dynamic vision, max, it is highly likely that they will still be temporarily recruited as talents. Valuable talents will be utilized, and the greater the value, the greater the chips. Adjusting the contingency plan according to different situations is the best choice. Divinity, this thing must be rotten in the stomach, and, bullet time, definitely won't say. However, dynamic vision is not something that cannot be exposed. After all, even at the max level, this ability is highly likely to be inferior to the talent inherited by the twins. Just from the information I heard on the previous broadcast, it's highly likely that they weren't in the jungle, so it shouldn't be them. Chapter 8. Hunting Moments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the rainforest, a sturdy man wearing leather armor with acne on his face kept roaring at a tall and thin boy in front of him holding a steel pipe. At first glance, it looks like a wish creature. It just slipped away from our eyes in such a white color. Why don't you go up and stop it? What's the use of me taking you with me? This sturdy man with acne, although of the same age as the tall and thin boy in front, has a much stronger physique, indicating that his daily meals are still good. Wearing a pair of leather armor similar to Tao Yu and an assault rifle in hand, it is obvious that the equipment is much better than the tall and thin boy in front who only has sharpened steel pipes and is wearing ordinary clothes. Faced with the scolding of his companions, the tall and thin boy dared not refute and just silently listened beside him. After expressing his frustration in his speech for a while, Lu Wen looked at Zhang Wei's honest and unresponsive demeanor and felt a little relieved. Due to the poor awakening talent, he has always been very angry in his heart, and just now he took the opportunity to vent. Lu Wen is able to grow so strong in an environment like the outer city, and his equipment is also considered good. In fact, his family conditions are still very good. His father has a keen, combat talent and works in the security forces. His older brothers and sisters also have decent talents, somewhat related to combat. But who would have thought that he had awakened a sensitive, chicken rib talent here? In his opinion, this talent feels like a complete negative enhancement, actually amplifying many of his tactile sensations. Pain, itching, stuffiness, and other sensations can all amplify, making it a torture in the rainforest. And I also felt a sense of darkness for the future. This talent does not mean that there is no employment or development direction at all, but most of them are in auxiliary directions such as drug testing and skill testing. Although the income may not be very poor, the environment is quite bad. If you don't participate in this kind of work, even if you work hard to have children, you may end up queuing up in the cannon fodder sequence during middle age. On the contrary, the mud-legged person in front of him, who has no father or mother, said that he actually has a talent for endurance, E+. Although not very strong, at least it is also helpful for the combat side, and in the future, the training effect and upper limit of that guy's physical fitness will also be stronger than ordinary people. After the awakening day is over, the company will definitely be willing to provide some resources to cultivate it. Having no father or mother may actually become a motivation for some people to be trapped under their command. As long as you work hard, the other party may never enter the cannon fodder sequence for life. Although the two of them are still dominated by themselves now, their future cannot compare to each other in the future, which makes Lu Wen feel bitter, powerless, and furious. If it weren't for this damn rainforest environment needing someone to take care of each other and watch the night, he would have a wicked urge to pounce on each other. Anyway, it's normal for anyone to die on the day of awakening, let alone wearing such equipment. What are you still doing in a daze? Chase, do you want me to go ahead? Lu Wen scolded the stunned Zhang Wei, who responded with a muffled "oh," and then slowly walked towards the direction of the giant snake's escape, carrying the steel pipe. Both parents passed away, and Zhang Wei was raised by his aunt as a pendant for cannon fodder weight points. From a young age, he was able to recognize his own status and environment. Without the opportunity to learn any skills, it is difficult for oneself to survive in such a rainforest without others, especially with such an abnormal python at first glance. Although he had fear in his heart now, he still trembled as he pushed through the grass and walked forward along the winding snake path. The cold steel pipe in his hand could not bring him any sense of security. That is to say, he awakened his talent for endurance, D+, which brought him good physical strength. Even if he didn't have any desire to strengthen himself, relying solely on this talent also made his physical fitness much stronger. Previously, he wanted to demonstrate his value without arousing jealousy, so he signed up for an E+. The result seems to have stimulated this temporary hitter. The opponent may not have awakened his combat talent, and he is really afraid that the opponent will surprise him from behind. However, in this rainforest environment, everyone prioritizes survival. A follower who listens to his advice and takes risks, as well as being able to watch each other at night, should still be more valuable alive. Zhang Wei never thought about finding an opportunity to sneak attack. Lu Wen ran and lick his bag, because he had never practiced any firearms and had very few other survival skills. If he were really alone, even with a gun in hand, the danger would be even greater. Live on. This is the ultimate goal he set for his awakening day. Now that I have a great talent, I can sell myself for a good price when I go back. This is the darkness before dawn. We must get through it. And at that moment, he noticed that the snake path ahead seemed to suddenly turn. Following the crushing of a branch and leaf, he squeezed and turned towards the side. When he changed direction and continued to follow the snake path, he suddenly became a little stunned and realized that the snake path ahead had turned again. Looking at the twisted and broken branches along the way, Zhang Wei looked up and noticed that the other party's traces were climbing up the giant tree, and he also went to the back swallowing saliva and slowly turning around. Zhang Wei had already seen a snake head stained with blood, the size of a water tank, silently descending from above. The curled and huge snake body seemed to be like a highly compressed spring, containing a terrifying explosive force, and had already appeared a few meters behind Lu Wen. Be careful. It's behind you. Zhang Wei let out a mournful reminder, not only to save Lu Wen, but also to save himself. While roaring, he also screamed and waved the steel pipe in his hand, constantly making various movements to attract the attention of the python. He knew very well that the gun in Lu Wen's hand was the huge weapon to deal with this thing. If the python could turn its head to find itself at a further distance, then Lu Wen would have the opportunity to shoot it out. It's not that he has the fearless spirit of sacrificing himself for others, but that he must do it. Lu Wen, who has always had some itching and scattered spirits due to his talent for sensitivity, was also clever when he heard Zhang Wei's roar. After all, there were many targeted exercises before he came in, and before he could turn around, he raised his gun and pulled the trigger. Shooting sparks while spinning my body. Attempt to scare off potential attacks in this way and by some time. However, since the python turned around and began to ambush towards the back, it was obvious that it had also distinguished the threat of the target. At first, it slowly approached but was only lurking. Now, when it was discovered, the slightly curled snake body muscles suddenly erupted, and the compressed force was completely released and ejected. The huge snake's head avoided the opponent's shooting with a side bite and bit Lu Wen into his mouth with just one bite. The creaking sound of broken bones also indicates the terrifying bite force of the python. The powerful impact instantly crushed Lu Wen's bones and squeezed his internal organs. Originally, if it were an ordinary person, this instantaneous injury would not have caused any pain, but unfortunately, Lu Wen still had the talent of sensitivity and even emitted a pig-killing scream. This scream seemed to be the battle song of a python, causing it to open its mouth again and lightly toss its ragdoll-like body, then increase its strength and bite again. The gunshots and screams suddenly came to an end, and then the snake's beak bulged, turning the body from the horizontal side into a more smooth direction, swallowing it at a much faster speed than normal snakes. If it is a normal snake that is swallowing food, it does not have much desire to attack, and may even vomit the food when in danger. But this python was obviously different. While swallowing Lu Wen's body, the snake's head, which was the size of a water tank, turned to Zhang Wei, who was holding a steel pipe and rushing halfway, and quickly swam towards this side. This made Zhang Wei, who was stiff, unable to help but show despair on his face. He could only tightly grasp the steel pipe in his hand and retreat, leaning his body against a thick tree trunk. Press the tail of the steel pipe onto the trunk of the tree, and then stare fixedly at the serpentine python swimming in. After Lu Wen's death, he couldn't run alone. The speed and agility of this python were obviously faster than traditional snakes, and a desperate blow in front of him was the last chance. Come on, beast. The desire to survive has overcome fear and despair, and finally awakened the battle talent I have long dreamed of. I cannot die here. The giant snake had already begun to curl its upper body again, as if a compressed spring could explode at any moment. But at this moment, suddenly there were continuous bursts of blood on top of the huge snake head, and at the same time, the sound of gunfire could be heard from afar. The powerful bullets of the assault rifle all hit the head with precision, and many even went straight through the eyes, almost instantly rendering the python powerless to resist. The primitive nervous system of snakes has turned the brain into a hornet's nest, but even the huge snake body is still vigorously swinging. The strong force crushed a large number of branches, and the giant tree that could be hit by the few people's embrace trembled for a while. The terrifying explosive power and the primitive barbaric power seemed to be telling the story of the strength of this jungle hegemon. Unfortunately, even if the head of a giant snake with a human body is beaten into a honeycomb, it cannot survive. Although the snake's body was still unconsciously swaying as its head fell to the ground, it should still have died. Can you please go and see if it's dead? I'll take care of it from behind. Tao Yu pushed aside the nearby trees and walked out, politely smiling at Zhang Wei. He had also vaguely heard Lu Wen's scolding before, and later he leaned on the side and watched coldly with a passing eye. Because he had suffered losses from ballistic attacks before, when the python attacked Lu Wen, he did not take the risk and only started firing after reaching a range that ensured the trajectory would not fly randomly again. The effect is quite good. And the tall and thin guy in front of me, based on my preliminary judgment, it's still good to form a temporary team in the short term. The other party clearly recognizes their position very clearly and is very sensible. He will open his mouth to remind and take risks to attract the attention of the giant snake, which also indicates that he has a full understanding of the current situation. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Could you please support me in the formation? Zhang Wei looked at Tao Yu, who was like a heavenly soldier descending to earth and saved himself, and his face also showed some excitement. Zhang Wei, who had survived, was also quick-witted when he heard Tao Yu's words. Then, while expressing gratitude, he controlled his slightly trembling legs and walked towards the python. I poked the python's head with a steel pipe to make sure it was completely dead. Chapter 9. Running in. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wiping the mucus off the magazine with leaves, Tao Yu inserted the 3 newly harvested magazine clips into the slots on the chest of the leather armor. Although the deceased guy should have absorbed all the wish items he brought, he still added some magazine clips from him to make up for the loss of his package being eaten. This python is not the one that was injured by oneself. It only has Lu Wen's body inside and no package of its own. In addition, one can also feel the concentration of the python's desire all over its body after death, converging on a tooth in its mouth. Tao Yu dug out these teeth and absorbed them, obtaining approximately 15 units of wish power, as well as some miscellaneous information about predation. Due to his spiritual immunity, Tao Yu was not affected by any messy information and had a vague understanding in his heart. If there are similar snake-killing completion information, perhaps one or two complete related skills can be obtained. It should be classified as latent and explosive. The quality of skills may be average, but for Tao Yu, there is a divine presence, which is not to be underestimated. Looking back at Zhang Wei, who was deftly handling the body of the python, cutting the snake meat into pieces and throwing it over the fire for baking, Tao Yu wiped the pistol he had obtained from Lu Wen and wiped it. How are your firearms skills? Lu Wen's assault rifle has been damaged with the bite of the python, but there is still one pistol that can be used. Upon hearing Tao Yu's words, Zhang Wei, who was cutting the flesh of a giant python with blood dripping from his hands, also looked up with an awkward smile. I haven't practiced before. Upon hearing these words, Tao Yu immediately dispelled the idea of lending the extra pistol to the other party. Don't be fooled by the seemingly simple use of firearms. It can be quite troublesome for someone who hasn't really touched them to use, and may even pose a threat to themselves in the opposite direction. Then he inserted the pistol into the leather case on his other thigh. Having absorbed the teeth of the python and obtained the fragmented information, Tao Yu still wanted to continue hunting these pythons. Arming Zhang Wei a little at this time is actually a positive effect, but since he doesn't have firearms skills, he can't waste bullets practicing for him. Looking down at the python meat that had been cut quite a bit, Tao Yu also spoke up to remind her, enough, then you'll carry these meat on your back. Oh, good. Zhang Wei looked at the wasted body of the python with some reluctance, but still honestly began rolling the cut snake meat over the fire for baking. In the outer city, several designated places for selling goods are quite expensive. Only 2 units can buy 1 pound of meat, while they purchase it at a price of 5 pounds per unit. So most of the time, the meat brought back from the abyss is either self-digested or exchanged between relatives. Although there are also private sales, if caught, it will directly clear the cannon fodder points, which is not a rare occurrence when there is no other way out. Similarly, food is no exception. In the situation where everyone can carry limited supplies when traveling back and forth to the abyss, it can be said that the company has kept everyone's daily necessities in the outer city at a certain threshold, and controlled them tightly by adjusting the prices of daily necessities. By the time Zhang Wei had simply roasted the snake meat and stuffed it into his backpack, the sky had completely turned dark. The dark night of the rainforest is the true dark forest, surrounded by heavy tree shadows, dancing like a group of demons under the flames of the fire. However, even so, with such a large and foul-smelling snake corpse next to him, Tao Yu still urged Zhang Wei, get ready to leave, it's not safe to stay here for a long time. I injured a giant snake before, not this one, maybe it's also nearby. Good rest is necessary, but it needs to be moved to another place. Otherwise, it may not only be a giant snake, but also bring various troubles. Even if it can be dealt with, it cannot rest well. Zhang Wei is equally aware of this. After using resin and tree branches to create several simple torches, he walked ahead with a torch in one hand and a steel pipe in the other. What is your awakened talent? A combat type. Tao Yu looked at Zhang Wei's tall and thin body. She had experienced so much before and even dissected a large snake. Now, carrying about 20 kilograms of snake meat, she still has good physical strength. She also asked. The other party does not have the characteristic of having one permanent certificate, so the only way to maintain normalcy is if the maximum stamina is high enough. Brother Tao, my awakened talent is endurance, E+. Just leave me to do this kind of strength work. As long as you can press the formation behind me, I don't want anything, just hope to follow you back alive. Zhang Wei walked ahead and spoke in a pleasing tone. Upon hearing the other person's words, Tao Yu could probably understand the reason for their low voice. Due to his combat talent, he can achieve a certain level of class advancement as long as he can return alive this time. With such hope, what he said is not polite. On the day of awakening, people in the outer city usually seek survival, and even if they have killed a python, it can be considered a good harvest. Compared to that, Zhang Wei sold himself after returning, and the price and income were much higher. Endurance, E+, is a standard talent for cattle and horses, and its combat side assistance is higher than Eagle Eye, similar to dynamic vision at the same level. It can be considered a standard ordinary combat talent. Getting a stable job similar to that of a parent, or even better, is not a problem. However, it's hard to say if the opponent's skill level is E+, perhaps there is also some moisture in it. Great, I'm dynamic vision, B, and I can see the road clearly at night. We still have some complementarity, but I'm planning to continue hunting these giant snakes. Are you sure you want to follow me? Tao Yu also estimated that he had revealed a talent to give the other party some confidence. If he encounters that pair of twins, he may self-expose his dynamic vision, max, to enhance his own value. But now, as long as you can suppress Zhang Wei, there's no need to show off too much. B.level combat talent. Brother Tao, you are really amazing. Don't worry, as long as you can dominate the formation, I will cooperate with you. Zhang Wei is both praising and truly surprised. Although dynamic vision is just an ordinary combat talent, its B.level height still allows the opponent to easily enter the security team, right? Perhaps if you work hard, you still have a chance to enter the inner city. That's something he can't even think of. Then he awkwardly said, well, actually my talent is at the D+ level. Before teaming up with others, he seemed a bit jealous. Since there's no need to worry about jealousy, Zhang Wei also needs to expand his own value. For the harvest of the awakening day, Zhang Wei had no idea at all when looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. He doesn't have any valuable skills of his own and relies solely on natural talent to sustain himself. In other words, now he can only do radio gymnastics to improve his physical fitness if he has the willingness, which is both wasteful and inefficient. Anyway, there is already endurance, D+, to ensure the lower limit, so why not give the limited willpower to the thighs first to improve strength? Not bad, the stronger the strength, the better. I will take things related to willpower when the time comes. If you perform well, I can bring back snake meat and Lu Wen's pistol afterwards. Tao Yu also drew a small cake. The items carried between two places are not only limited in size, but also in weight. So it's all about piecing together things at home. The weight is based on the individual's unaffected weight, and the opponent has endurance, D+. The last wave should have a chance to carry a weight of 50 kilograms back. In addition, with a regular pistol worth about 100 willpower, this is quite a good harvest for Zhang Wei. Tao Yu's parents, combined, may only have gained so much in half a month. Actually, it's okay not to give, but setting a goal and hanging it can better mobilize the other party's own initiative. Thank you, thank you. I will definitely work hard. Zhang Wei clearly mobilized some enthusiasm and appeared somewhat uplifted. He is not very talented, even if he sells himself back, he will still be a laborer. It's just that his life is much better than before, and this harvest is enough for him to take risks. Moreover, this elder brother has a natural talent for dynamic vision, B, and has a clear foundation in firearms control. He plays extremely accurately, and although this giant snake may seem dangerous, it is also within an acceptable range.